Shalev, welcome to the show, dude.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for being here.
I love being here, man.
I knew
Thanks
you're
for the
coming
invite.
for door-to-door con. I'm like, oh, we got to line up Shalev.
We said we're gonna do this for a while, so I'm glad we finally made it happen.
You always justify an excuse to pick your brain, man. You know how it is. So I'm excited to have you. Give everybody a little intro on yourself, on your background. You've got a very impressive background in business and with your personal life.
I wouldn't classify it as impressive, but it's interesting. It's different in our industry. I'm originally from Israel, right? Kind of have to do the military experience when you're there, so had to do that. From there, traveled South America for about a year. When I finished, I ended up in the U.S. Just wanted to make some money, go back to Israel. So I was working actually under the table, selling a Dead Sea product in a mall. It so happened to be that was here in Utah. Yeah. And a guy comes up to my booth one time and he's like, "Hey, I've watched you for about 45 minutes and really was impressed and want to offer you a job door-to-door selling security." Right? I come from Israel. We don't have that door-to-door type, of culture. So I end up brushing him off, saying no, thank you. And he kept on consistently nagging me about like a phone. What's your phone? What's your phone number? I said, look, I don't even have a phone here, So he's like, okay. He goes away, comes back 10 minutes later with a Verizon box and an 801 number sticky note on it. Says, I bought your phone. Now I have your number. He said, I prepaid for 3 months. So as long as you answer my calls, I'll keep paying your bills. And that got me. And he walked away, gave me the phone, walked away.
Wow.
End up, I got recruited to do APACs back in the day, right? Did really well, was one of the top rookies. And which is interesting because I barely spoke English in 2007. Yeah. It wasn't like what it is today. And then we started our own company in 2011, grew all North America, Canada, and US, did really well there. So that was kind of how I got into the industry.
Love that. And then for the audience, like what's one of the biggest years, like income wise for you from sales, recruiting, overrides, if you're able to share?
I find that today is so crazy with solar commissions, what I see out there.
Yeah.
So security commission back in the day, were, I think the average manager was making 150, 250,000 in the summer, right? It was 4 or 5 months. My best year was 650,000. I think that summer that I made.
Wow.
I did just over 8,000 accounts in a summer, security accounts. Wow. It was a regional. It was my 4th year, I think, in the industry.
That's incredible. How many guys did you have?
I had 3 teams. I think my personal team, I had around 20, 30 to 20, because during the summer, you get the attrition of the summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had 2 other satellite team, but I grew really fast. It's interesting because when I came to the company, to the region that I was at that time, the standard kind of manager was making 150, 200 grand. And then I come in and in my first rookie year as a manager, I did 365,000.
Yeah.
I feel like it broke a glass ceiling in the mentality of the other managers, because the next year, every manager was making like 300.
You raised the bar.
So it's interesting.
Roger Bannister came in.
It's just interesting how we have these mental barriers. Yeah. And then once they're shattered, it's just like,
it's amazing.
There's so much opportunities, right?
I had something similar my first year of pest control. I almost doubled the rookie record. And then they changed the rules on what a rookie was.
No way. Nice. Yeah. There you go. Setting records and changing the rules over that. You're doing it right?
Yeah, I love it, man.
That's so amazing.
Fun. So fun.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think people get caught up a lot these days on what's the best way to grow, what's the best way to scale, right? And I've always told my guys, the way I look at recruiting and just scaling a business, right? Like if you're a manager, you can go through the social media aspect of things, Instagram, LinkedIn and all that. You can go warm contact, which is through your buddy list and their buddy list, right? Or you can technically do that cold calling, right? Where it's just straight up go to a stranger.
Which is what you've mastered.
It's just something I had to master. And that's so funny. I came into Edmonton in 2008 after my rookie year.
Yeah.
And I was told, okay, go build an office. And back then there was no Facebook, there's no Instagram, there's nothing, right?
And you came from Israel. You didn't have much of a network here.
I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, what am I doing here? So I just had to teach myself how to completely go to a complete stranger, just like we do on the doors, but on the recruiting side of things. And I got really good at doing that. And through those people, now they had buddy lists, so I could grow through their buddy list.
Yeah.
And so I kind of created these social networks through these cold calling and became really good in that. And I brought 350 reps every year that way.
That's crazy, Shalev. Yeah, dude, you are a master. So guys, for those of you who don't know Shalev, first and foremost, like who you are as a man, dude, I love it. Like I love your energy. I love what you're about. And but Shalev is a master of not just recruiting, but NLP. And like you geek out on the psychology and how to actually like really persuade and win people over at every level. And so
let's explain what NLP is for
yeah,
those who are listening and don't know. So neuro linguistic programming, it was John Grinder and Richard Bandler that came out, and basically they wanted to model a few people like Virginia Satir. She was like a family psychologist. Gregory Bateson was an anthropologist. And so they took these people and they basically modeled their success and built this kind of psychology that they called NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So neuro is our neurology. It's really how we perceive the world around us through our neurology, our senses, right? Our eyes, ears, nose, right? And what they found is that there's an event in your life that happens, but it's really what senses are being operated at that event. You will have a recollection of that event that is very different than another person who maybe experienced that event in a different way, right? If you were in a car crash and you were in the car, or if that car crash happened and I saw it, or even if I just heard it, and the police officer comes later on and asks us all what happened, we'll have very different stories on the same event. So that's like that first set of filters that happens. The second one is how we internally verbalize those, right? So then you got your model operators, like your personality, your memories, your belief systems. You got what we call generalization, distortion, and basically what they are, it's these set of filters that we do without even thinking about it, subconsciously, right? The amount of information our brain perceives in 1 second, right? The amount of bits of data per second that our brain can take. Our conscious mind can perceive 40 bits of data per second. Our unconscious mind can perceive, they say, anywhere between 7 to 11 million bits of data per second. So there's just so much information that is being lost, or just the brain says, hey, I don't find that relevant. I'm going to go to overload if I try to explain everything. So I'm just going to delete it, distort it, or just generalize it.
Yeah.
Now, most belief systems are generalization, right? If you're a kid and you see a door and you open the door and you're like, oh, okay, a door is meant to be open and walked through. The next time you see a door, you already know what it is, because all doors are meant to be walked through, right?
Right.
The problem with that is that sometimes generalization would leave somebody with a belief system on something in life that is not accurate, but then his actions will perceive that belief and will set him on a very certain path, right? So that linguistic, it's how we verbalize that information, right? That's the NLP. So that's the L from the NLP. So then we have this mental image that we see in our head, together with our state of mind at that moment and our physiology. We have our programming, which is really the behavior, the end results. Now, we as salespeople, as recruiters, as just business owners, we deal with behavior. We deal with the end. What we need to start thinking of people is, instead of people thinking of their behavior, think of their feelings, because whatever leads to a behavior is always pre-behavior. You always have a certain feeling, right? Somebody feels a certain way, and that feeling gets them to act a certain way. Now, that feeling is generated by that internal picture.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of the study of NLP.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got to talk more about this.
You could go on for like 3 hours on that.
Let's sell the audience on understanding, like, how has understanding NLP affected you in business and in your personal life? I guess we could hit on the business first.
Sure. I when I typically talk right on stage and do workshops, right, I always start with it's called the neurological levels, which is 6 neurological levels based on Robert Dilts. He's a guy who also one of the sort of masters of NLP, one of the originals. And what he coined this, he was talking about these different levels that we operate within our environment, right? So you got your environment, which is the lowest one.
Yeah, I'm going to take notes on these.
Yeah, and so right above the environment, you got your behavior. Okay. So behaviors, the behaviors that we do within the environment. Then above that, you got your skill set, your capability. It's like what your skill set and capabilities within those, behaviors. Then above that, you got your level of values and beliefs. Okay. Above values and beliefs is your identity. It's how you see yourself, who you are, right? A little pro tip on that one. Anybody who always starts a sentence with I am speaks in terms of the identity level. That's how you know somebody's in the identity. When he says I am something, then you know he's on the identity level. And I'll explain in a second why it's so relevant, right? And then the top level is the purpose. It's like, what's our purpose?
Yeah.
If you want to think about it in a different way, think of purpose as your vision. It's like your ideal vision.
Yeah.
Your identity is your mission. It's like who I am, what's my role within that vision. and your values and belief is like your ambition. It's like your motivation within that to pursue that. Now, the reason why this is so relevant is because a lot of the times when I see people speak on stages, I'll have somebody say, let me teach you guys how to sell, how to answer objections. Let me teach you how to formulate the perfect office structure. Let me teach you how to work really, really hard, or how to have great habits.
It's almost like surface level. It's like the lower
It's the
level
low,
of interest.
exactly. It's what I call low coaching, low level coaching. Not that low. Now every level will affect your life. So improving your environment, your behavior, your skill set, all of those will affect, and you have results. But every higher level will affect the lower level. Not every lower level will affect the higher level. So if you don't have a sense of vision, mission, and identity,
Yeah.
how do you know? So let's take the opposite. If you have a clear sense of vision and a clear sense of mission, so you know exactly where you want to go, what's your role, what's your values within that. Now you know also what belief system you need to have, what skill set you need to acquire, what
Right.
behavior you need to behave, and what environment you need to be in to get that. So it's all of it derivative from the top to the bottom.
And would you say story, like telling your story and having people relate to that, that's is part of the reason I feel like storytelling is so powerful, is because it hits a little bit on the top three, like your identity, your purpose.
So
it has the potential to,
yeah, and
like,
so
if it's related to your mission, you know.
I think stories in general, stories and metaphors. I always say that, but there's really two skill sets. Now, this is a skill set. Telling stories it falls under the skill set
Okay.
level, right? Because it's a skill set to tell a
Yeah.
story. It's something you learn how to tell good stories.
Right.
But as a salesperson, you have to master two skill sets, and then you'll be the best salesperson in the world.
Yeah.
Asking questions
Yep.
and telling stories,
Yeah.
right? Or metaphors. Yeah. And the reason why
Yeah.
it's interesting, it's because what we call it's bypass the critical faculty, right?
Okay.
And the critical faculty is that bodyguard in our brain that stops everything trying to protect us from being hurt, right? And it's so, for example, reactance is one of the typical objections you'll find in a cell. Do you know what reactance means, by the way? Just to clarify. So reactance is the necessity of someone to restore their personal autonomy for freedom. Meaning, if I feel like my sense of freedom was taken away from me, I'm going to fight like hell to get back that sense of freedom, because freedom is one of the most important things for us. So reactance comes in when a loss of freedom. And in a sale connotation, sometimes customers will be feeling like, oh my God, like I'm being cornered. I'm being pushed to something. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I need to, so I'm going to react. And it's even in the point where you have those sales where they're so obvious, where it's so easy for the customer to say, it's like, this is so good for you. This is perfect for you. Why would you say no? And then they say no. And then you're like you don't understand that, right? The rep needs to understand it's not that they say no to the product. It's the reactance feeling coming in saying, I'm feeling cornered. I need to feel like I can say no. So I'm going to say no.
Interesting.
And stories and metaphors and questions bypass that, because what they do is they make the person conclude what you're wanting to say versus you telling them that. So the moment the person, if you ask a question, they're not going to argue themselves, right?
Yeah.
Stories and metaphor do the same thing. They bypass that same thing by telling a story, so they understand the message of the story without having you to tell them that.
Yeah, dude, I've always had this this fascination with the phenomenon of storytelling, and I feel like it's this third party perspective that allows you to communicate a message where they don't have a filter or a wall up.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you're telling them about facts, or like trying to sell them on something, it's like sales resistance is there. Like, you're trying to sell me, bro. But when you like talk about a story, it's like they detach and then you have their full attention.
Yeah. And I would say, when a context, we start talking recruiting, right? As a recruiter, as well as a salesman, you always want to have your set of stories. That's something that everybody should have, right? Like it's the same stories, right?
It is.
But it's a story about, so you want to have like a story about your vision, a story about why you do what you do.
Yeah.
A story about why your company is different, right? A story maybe about your values, right? So you kind of want to have a set of stories where you already know, okay, I'm going to pull a story when I need to talk about who I am or why am I different, right? Or I need a story to talk about my vision. And then those stories are like the message without that. Now you want to practice the stories like anything. Delivery is important, right?
Yes.
When telling a story, delivery is a big thing. So you don't want to just kind of wing it, right? You want to have a story that you've practiced before, how to deliver it, how to say the right words, you want to bring them into the story. But I always recommend people to have these set of stories pre-sale or recruiting or anything like that.
That's a fascinating, man. I think I've got a couple thoughts here on this. Like with recruiting, I've realized, being vulnerable about like your struggles and the difficulties and the just the things that the adversity you've faced, and being real and vulnerable with that, like it helps win people over
100%.
and it helps you connect, and then in selling, the same form with that, it would be like talking about the cons of like, hey, look, like this isn't sexy. I don't know what you've heard, but like, sorry to break it to you, but this sucks. What you're doing right now also sucks. But let me see if this will make sense. And I feel like they're both forms of like being relatable to people to kind of open them up.
And to explain where my 2 cents on that is, it's vulnerability creates credibility, right? And when we think in terms of the process, right? Aristotle came out with the art of rhetorics, right? The art of rhetorics is like the art of speech. He says ethos, pathos, logos. Ethos, pathos, logos. Ethics, passion, logic, right? You always want to start with ethics, with your credibility. And then you want to move into emotion, which is the passion. And then you want to seal it up with logic, right? It's like the nature of a cell, right? And when you build rapport with somebody, and rapport, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if you're in a sell connotation. And by the way, recruiting, let's change the word from recruiting to partner. And I
love that you say that.
I have to. It actually hurts me now when I say recruiting. It just feels so one-sided, right? And I'm like, it should be like a partnership. Like we're together. We're going the same direction, right?
I love that.
But when it comes to whether it's partnership, whether it's but let me take it from the psychology world, right? Like I do a lot of coaching and personal sort of work with people, individuals and companies. And in the NLP world, they'll teach you too, just like sales. The first thing you got to do is build rapport, right? Before you start your coaching, before you start anything. And so rapport building is so critical. And there's 3 main components to building rapport.
Okay.
Right? There is the credibility part, okay, which you get through different ways, right? You can get through expertise, right? If I come into you and I start blowing you up with information, you're like, wow, this guy must be an expert, right? Boom, credibility is built, right?
Yeah.
Confidence, that builds credibility. Vulnerability, like you said, like starting with
why does vulnerability create credibility is my question.
Because it shakes the perspective of the other person. The person comes in with a preconceived notion of, oh, this is going to be, this selling pitch, right? This is going to be this.
It pulls down the barriers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're throwing it at them like from the left side. You're like, wait, what? You're telling me all the bad? Okay, you're different.
Yes.
Okay, then that builds credibility. You're not like everybody else. Especially if they tag the label on you, like door-to-door salesman, right? And they're coming in with this, oh, here's another door-to-door salesman. All of a sudden, you're so different. Oh, wait, what is that?
Guys, let me just hit on this. This is how I sell. Like, this is one of the big, it's tactic. It's not even a tactic. It's just being real. Sure. But this is one of the things I do that helps me sell a ton. And it makes closing seamless and rapport seamless and trust seamless. So sometimes the reason you try to close a deal and there's resistance is it's usually trust or lack of urgency, lack of trust.
Yeah. Like the way that sales rep needs to approach any sale is like, if all of us sold the exact same product for the exact same company, the exact same way, everything, why would they buy it from me and not from you?
Yeah,
it's me.
Yeah,
right? They buy me at the end of the day.
The billboard, so,
right. And so it has to come with a genuine authenticity that you actually care for them, right?
That's keyword, authenticity.
And so credibility is that first component in rapport building. The second one is similarity. Okay.
Yep.
Our brain works like a sonar, like those sonars that sends beeps into the world, that send like pings in the world, and we subconsciously constantly look for a piece of ourselves in others all the time. Subconsciously, every person does. So when you meet a new person, you don't even understand that yourself, but you are looking for yourself in them. Anything that reminds you of them. If me and you had the same name, if me and you came from the same country, if me and you like the same sport, if we wear the same clothes, if we look, obviously, if we're both, sitting the same way, right? We always teach reps like mimic their body, right? But it's the concept is anything that makes similarity calms down the amygdala, because when their primitive mind says, wait a second, new event, not sure what's going on. Should I be worried? Should I not? Is this a threat to my existence, right? The thing that
Interesting.
calms down that amygdala is getting them those notions of saying it's okay. And when they see themselves in others, that's one of those signals that they're looking for to say, it's okay, I can calm down, I can be myself, I can be relaxed. And so having that similarities, any
Wild.
similarities you can find with them, automatically calms them down. And that's why we start with credibility, similarity, and finish with likings.
Let me hit on this the similarity real quick. I've always said being a chameleon is an art, and the best salespeople are chameleons. Now, this doesn't mean you have to fake it, right? Like, there's different sides to every person, and like I have a very nerdy side. Like, I could talk to a World of Warcraft or a video game nerd, and I can win them over like that because I've been there, right? I can, and so there's different parts of you, and a lot of salespeople like put off this facade energy of like trying to be this like ideal like person of professionalism, and that's good, but you can't beat the power of authenticity and relatability. And so I've just recognized I've seen this pattern with myself of relating to so many different types of people. And I look for something where I'm like, how can I connect with this person? You know, whether it's a faith, whether it's like, you know, they're just shitting on a present or whatever it is, you know, like
there's so many clues out there when you go in to approach a door. I mean, you just look at their front yard, you just look at their house, you can grab clues from anything and find something to relate, right? It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, we just found our soulmate, but it has to be something where they feel, oh wow, we kind of share the same goal. And in partnering, it's the same thing, right? I sit in front of somebody and I'm like, how can I relate to them? The more relatability I have, the better it is. When I teach cold calling, you know, side topic here, but I always say people will follow you for 3 reasons. Okay. If it's a complete cold call, like you went out them in a gas station, right? They want to be you. And when I say they want to be you, it means that something about you caught their interest, right? It could have been anything. It could be, of course, the car you drive or the clothes you wear, right? But it could be just your attitude, your overall, like, just who you are, right? There's something about you that they found interesting enough to say, I want to hear more. I want to learn more. Okay, so that's the first thing, right? The second thing is they like you. They have to like you because say you come in with a nice car and they're like, oh, wow, I want this guy's car, but you're a total dick. Right? They'd be like, I don't want to be associated with that guy, right? He's an asshole, right? And the third thing, and that's really important, they have to see the way, meaning that let's take the first 2 and say that they saw you with your nice car and they really like, you know, and they really like you, and you're, you know, and they're like, wow, what a nice guy, what a nice car. But hey, guess what? He had millions of dollars from his dad because his dad passed away. He inherited millions of dollars, but I don't have a rich dad, so I don't have a way to get to where he's at. I'm not going to follow you because you had it where I don't have it. I don't have the way to get it.
Okay.
Where if I come to you and say, hey, listen, I have a nice car that you really like, or the lifestyle that you really like, we like each other, we get along together. And guess what? I started from where you are. I was working in a mall in a kiosk, you know, just kind of making end meet. And I became who I became through this opportunity. Now you're like, wow, I actually see the way, right? Now you're installing that belief system in them. So they have to, you know, want to be you, they have to like you, and they have to see the way. That's where the relatability comes is so important.
I love that. Okay, going back to the report of the 3 things: credibility, similarity, and then what's the third? And
liking is, you know, eventually, right? They need to like you, right? So, you know, that it definitely helps with the credibility because it opens up their ear and they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? Like another way of credibility is titles. Like people like titles, right? Even ranks in the military or doctors with their degree, like doctor this, doctor that's, like having that title. I'm a regional manager. I'm a manager. Immediately you're putting yourself in this more credible place, right? And then, of course, you got the similarities. You build that similarity, and then eventually, liking can happen from multiple things. Smiling is always the easiest one. I tell people humor is great. If you're not a funny person, somebody's like, oh, I'm not funny, right? I don't have jokes. So first of all, at the kiosk, I remember we always had these preset jokes. We always had the same jokes. We told the same jokes. We had this as part of the pitch. So you can always incorporate that. Use ChatGPT or something to find some jokes you can tell. But even if not, like names, people love hearing the sound of their names. So, you know, using their names, right? Asking questions from people. Always people like
talking about themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of stuff. telling something embarrassing about yourself make the other person feel good about themselves, therefore they like you, because we like
I
people
do
that
that all
make
the time,
us
actually.
like ourselves, right? So that's and by the way, me too.
Yeah.
Always embarrass myself. I put myself down almost on purpose, because
Yeah.
that person feels good about themselves, which is what I want them. I want them to
Yeah.
feel good about themselves, right? I want that feeling. Remember, with the
Yes.
NLP side of things, we go for feelings. We don't go for behaviors.
Yeah.
A mindset of a salesperson has to be, what is the feeling I want that person to have when I leave the house, or when I want them to make a decision? Not what the behavior is, what the feeling I want them to have. Think
Yeah.
in terms of feelings, not behaviors.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dude, these are all major principles that Dale Carnegie or Andrew Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You guys can tell Shalev knows his shit.
I can see you do too, man. I love reading books, and see, if we just met each other, that would be immediately rapport building. Like, look at all these books. Boom, let's talk about books.
I love it, dude.
Super simple. I would say this is something that I think people tend to miss when it comes to partnering in the business side of things, but it's also when it comes to relationship. I mean, relationship is universal, right? So a lot of the principles that you think in terms of marriage, how to get a successful marriage, it'd be very much applied to how to have a successful business partner, right? If we were to be a business partner, we would want to know that honesty exists,
integrity,
right?
trust,
active
communication,
that handling, how do we handle problems when problem occur? Can we handle them together in the right way, right? Like, do we have the same values, and do we have the same end goal, right? And so when I talk to people, especially high level leaders, when I bring them to my company, and I'm talking like regional levels or high level, right?
Yeah.
I try to find out, I call it the lighthouse, but I try to find out what the lighthouse is. The lighthouse is kind of like what we talked about. It's that, what's the end purpose? What's the end vision that they have, right?
Okay.
What are their mission within that? Like, how do they see themselves getting there? And most importantly, what are the values that serves them?
Yeah.
And values is something that unfortunately is missed in so many connotation of sales and partnering. And values have this 3 element to each value. Okay. It's the label. The value has a name, the label of the value that we get. Okay. It's the how we know we have it, and it's the feeling that it generates to us. Okay. Now, it's very similar to belief structure, right? So belief structure is a cause, effect, and a meaning this caused this, right? Which means this. So cause, effect, meaning. Right. All belief structure are the same. This caused this means this.
Yeah.
Okay. And we speak in beliefs language all the time.
Yeah, we do.
Right. And so when I sit with somebody and I want to understand them, I want to know, are they going to be a good partner of mine? Like, are we going to be able to partner together?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I look for their values and who they are as a person. Because if we talk about that triangle, skill set is underneath values.
Right.
And if I can find the right values in someone, skill set I can give. I mean, look at you.
Yeah.
You can take anybody yourself tomorrow. And it doesn't matter who it is, right? And you could probably give them the skill set to knock doors, to sell.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It'll be a lot harder for you to find a person on the street and teach them how to be the right person that you're.
Oh, dude, you're so spot on. This is so gold. I love you, dude.
Right.
yeah. This is, guys. This conversation will save you years,
hours or years, right? And don't be stressed about trying to bring in 40 people.
Yeah.
You heard me say the ice cube analogy. Mm-hmm. You've heard me say that, right?
Yeah. The temperature. It's beautiful.
I think that's what people miss.
It is, yeah.
I kind of should have said it maybe on stage yesterday a little bit about the ice cube analogy, but for those who listened, right, like the ice cube analogy says, like, if you take one ice cube and you put it in a hot boiling pot of water, what happens to it immediately?
It's melted instantly.
It becomes a hot water, right?
Yeah.
But if you take 10 ice cubes and you put them in lukewarm water, what happens to the temperature of the water?
It adjusts.
It gets colder, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at a potential employee, and you put them in an environment, let's say the environment is 1 to 5 is the levels, right? And 5 is a super stud, 1 is not good, right?
Okay.
You take a potential 4 to 5 and you put him in a group of 2s, he'll never pass a 3, right? But if you take a potential 3 and you put him in a group of 5 5s, he'll reach a 4, right? So, you want to create an environment. It's not about the numbers of employees you have. It's
Correct.
the level of the people that you have.
100%.
That's how you create environment. That's how you create culture.
100%. Yeah, I can attest to that, man. That's game changer. We shifted part of it. You were asking me like how we've started to blow it up a little bit. One of the things that we've shifted our focus was from going from recruiting to getting people results, right? And that is like the precursor to recruiting success is it doesn't matter how many bodies you funnel in. If one, they're crap, two, your culture systems are crap, your training is crap, right? For us, it was good. And a lot of things were great, but there's a big gap between great and excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we realized. And then once we got to excellent, our success rate blew up and we started attracting higher level people. Our people started to get results.
Mm-hmm.
Law of the lid, we attract higher level people,
Yeah.
and it's self-perpetuating, right? It's just a fascinating thing.
I find that in door-to-door industry and in our space, and I'm talking any door-to-door I've seen, there's that book, 5 Level of Leadership, right? And so it talks, level 1 is position, right? Level 2 is permission. Level 3 is like where you start performance, when you start delivering performance, right? Level 4 is like duplication, and level 5 is like the pinnacle, right? So you'd find a lot of level 3s in our industry, meaning like individuals.
Go through those one more time.
Yeah. So level 1 is position.
Okay.
And position is just like a McDonald's, Starbucks manager. You're in that position because somebody told you, hey, you're the boss. But the employees literally will only listen to you because they don't want to get fired. They're not going to do the extra mile for you. They're not going to do anything more than just to keep their job.
Right.
Level 2, right, which is permission. That's the level where you are being selected by your team. Your team allows you to lead them. They're saying, we're fine for you being the manager and leader, but you don't have to deliver performance. You can just be like a charity organization or something like a hockey team, and you're the captain, but you're not necessarily the best player in the team. You're just the captain because the team says, we want you to be the captain, right? So there's not a performance indicator that has to be attached to it. Now, the level 3 is what you see most of our managers in our industry, where it's like you being promoted based on performance, and you're also being selected by your team saying we're okay with you leading us, and we want, but you also have to deliver results. You're not just able to just kind of sit around, right, and lead. And that's most of our managers in our industry. Where do we find the biggest hurdle? Is level 4.
Level 4.
It's duplication. It's development. Yeah. It's like, let me now take myself and create another level 3.
Yeah.
I find people having such a hard time with duplicate. As soon as they push an office, either that office crumbles, either their office crumble, either both office crumbles.
Okay.
If they have to rejoin again to another office.
We gotta break this down. Let's hit number 5 one more time. What is it?
Number 5 is the pinnacle. Number 5 is like when you create like legacies, when you create like massive organizations that are like enterprise levels, right? That's a really hard level. But 4 is where I'd say most regionals are at. It's like, okay, I have 3 managers underneath me. I've managed to duplicate myself. And that's where it just seems to be having a really hard time for people.
This is something I've gotten really obsessed with this last year, is the art of duplication. And I've got a lot of mentorship the last 2 years on duplication. And I think even just now I'm at the beginning of seeing the results, and at the beginning stages. Like it takes a while, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts of like, why do people fail with duplicating success? Right? There's a lot of reps that I used to be one of them, where like I was a sales phenom, right? And I had good trainings, but I had a hard time duplicating my success. And I had my competitors and even people that were in the same company as me just like shit on me. Like, oh, he can't do it. He's a great salesman, but not the best trainer. And that has changed now.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And there's not one particular thing. I mean, I can think of a few, right? Just to say the first thing that I can think of in the space, what I've seen limits people from duplicating themselves. The first and obvious ones I found are like greed.
Interesting.
Where the leader would not want somebody to level up to him because they have like that
scarcity mindset,
right? They're like,
so
I don't want to
real.
share information. I don't want to teach them because what if they come better than me?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm scared to push myself higher.
Well, dude, that's the law of legacy. Like the law of legacy of 21 irrefutable laws of leadership with John C. Maxwell. The last one is law of legacy. It's you genuinely want people to become better than you.
Yeah. It actually pushes you to keep studying and
keep
learning, because like, man, I gotta keep adding values.
Dude, that's my whole thing, is like I want people to outgrow me. I want people to out-earn me, And like I fully believe in what Zig Ziglar says. If like it's the same thing, and Jim Rohn says it too. You get paid in direct proportion to value you bring. And so, Zig Ziglar says, if you want to make more, go help people become more, right? And if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want. And so I'm like, dude, I want to make a lot of millionaires. And I'm okay actually making less than my closers this year. I'm okay with that.
I think humility is one of the sexiest thing in the world.
Yeah,
honestly,
agreed.
I see in social media, there's so much fake and there's so much ego.
Yeah.
And I have people that would call me and will say, Shalev, can I do, coaching session with you, and I don't know what's going on with my life. I'm sad. I'm depressed. But you look at their page on social media, and it's like,
wild.
oh, look at my life and how great it is and everything.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, there is so much discrepancy between the person that talks to me behind the camera or out on the corner, and then the one who puts himself out there on the social media. And I understand where recruiting and the image is coming from, but when you have that much discrepancy, I think it's bad, because you're not playing tricks on anybody else but yourself.
Yeah.
And I think I always say this: people with low self-worth have to always show their net worth.
Yeah.
People with high self-worth don't have to show their net worth. You look at some of my top leaders in my organization, and they are the most humble people. Even though they have so much success, they're so humble. They don't need to display it out there. They don't need to show it off. They don't need that gratification of saying, pat me on the back and tell me I'm great, because they know they're great. People that don't know that they're great, people that are so scared and have that low self-worth, they constantly need that validation from social media and other people. And I found that with most of the coaching sessions that I do, the one-on-ones, when we peel down the onion layer, when they come to me with a presented problem, should I have a problem with my life, with my relationship, or with this, it's never the problem. In NLP, we say the problem is never the problem. The map is not the territory, is what we say. Meaning that, they think they're coming for a certain problem, but when you actually ask a few questions, you peel the onion layers, it's actually something completely different. And it's typically attached to their self-worth. It's typically a low self-worth issue.
It is.
Right. Going back to the question you asked about developing people, though, just before, because I know we're a little bit limited on time today. Another really, really key element to developing people is time. It's patient. And when a leader is not willing to be patient, and he is almost to the point where he says, it's either coming out of greed of like, I don't want to sacrifice income because I know that if I let this guy take over and make mistakes, it's going to hurt me financially. So if you're not willing to let your guys learn, that's how we develop. When I was the first VP, when I was promoted to be a VP, nobody taught me how to be a VP of sales. And I had to teach myself. And I made a lot of mistakes, a lot. But that's what made me who I am today, right? So we got to be patient enough and letting our guys make the mistakes to learn, and be okay with them making mistakes, not be mad at them, because that's the process of them developing to become the leader they're going to be, right? So the patient, and it has to come with coaching. Now, coaching is not about me telling you what to do. It's me asking you questions, right? So if I truly want to develop you as a leader, I can't solve all your problems. Just like a good parents won't go to their kids and solve all their problems. Be like, what do you think? How would you tackle this? Is there another way of doing this? So I can show you the first time maybe. And let me show you the first time how to do it. But then the next time I want you to do it, and I'll view you from the side. I'll help you, or come to me with questions, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are. But I want you to come with me with solutions too. I don't want you to just come with the problems. I want you to come with a problem and what you think the solution should be. And I can tell you how I would handle it, right? But the coaching has to be through questions and development. And when you're missing that critical part of empowering the person, giving them the confidence that they can lead, then you're missing the whole point, because the whole point is to ensure that guy feels confident enough to develop and lead. If he goes out there, fails, and you yell at him or you get mad at him, like, you know what, let me just do it. I'll just do it. I know how to do it better. I'll just do it. Right? It's like a parents tell to the kids, let me just do your homework for you all the time. Well, the kid never learned.
It's the worst thing you can do.
So that's what it takes. It takes the patient and the knowledge of how to coach somebody properly. And that's through asking questions. Question is the key of all things in therapy, in sales,
breakthrough,
everything,
in mentorship. Like I remember my mentor from being mentored by Tony Robbins. He says, Nick, your life will be measured by the quality of the questions you ask. And I've seen, like, we just 100%. Had the Muscle speak at our company event. We paid him $15,000 for the night. And it was interesting. It was hard to like keep my mouth shut and let my people ask the questions. And I need to give them a training of how next time we pull on a big dog like that, like, guys, we asked some good questions, but we could have done much better. And so I'm going to give them a training on saying, like, hey, look, your life will be measured by these questions you ask. And there's a very big difference on the quality of questions. And there's a massive gap.
Look, I do a course on asking questions, just on asking questions. And I start the course always by explaining the type of questions: why, what, how. And, you want to ask. So the first question you want to ask when asking a question is, why am I asking that question? Like, what's the purpose of asking that question? Where am I going with it? Right. Same as in sales. And when you think of why questions, just the word why,
Mhm.
why gets you two things, either stories or excuses,
Mm.
right? Or belief systems. Now, it's okay to ask the question why, right? It's not like the asking why is a bad question, but it's dependent on situational, right? Meaning that if I'm looking for generally hearing your belief system, I'm going to ask you a why question because I want to actually investigate your belief systems. Mine, I want you to kind of like the audience to remember beliefs are not facts, they're just opinions. And people tend to mistakenly think that their beliefs is facts. It's not. So we always want to make sure that when somebody gives us a belief,
Yeah.
we understand that that is only an opinion, even though they're so certain about it. A belief is still an opinion. We weren't born with our belief system. We developed them over time. We grew
Yes.
with them, right? Whether they
Yeah.
came consciously or subconsciously. So having that is critical to remember. So when you ask a why question, it means they're asking you to understand your belief, or I want to hear a story or an excuse. Most of the time when people don't have a legitimate story, they'll make an excuse. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? But why focuses on the past. I think of why questions are always on the past. If you want to focus process questions, meaning future, then you
Yeah.
ask how and what.
Mm.
How would we go about this going forward? What are you going to do next time this thing happens, right? So what
Nice.
and how are great questions for future and processes, where why focuses more on the past.
Past.
So understanding when to ask the questions is the first step of asking good questions.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Shalev. Just let me add on to this. So like I've been a student of Tony Robbins this last year. I know we'll wrap here in a sec.
Yeah.
And, he talks about beliefs and values. And so like, if you understand, you're talking about if you understand people at their core, from their purpose, their identity, their values, you understand how to move people.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how to move people, you're going to make a lot of money, and you have you'll do very well.
I'll close this with this, and we could take another time. But there's a sentence I really like when I learned my first course of NLP. It's like, if I know you better than you know me, I can influence you. But if I know you better than you know yourself, I can control you.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Spot
So,
on.
it's knowing you, right? It's whatever is in your awareness is in your control. So the first step of anything is being aware of it.
Yeah.
Right. So the awareness part is so critical for people, like making them aware of their belief system, making them aware of the things that they might not even be aware of,
Yeah.
is the first step to then teaching them how to, if they don't know the problem, they continue doing the problem.
Yeah.
So getting them to be aware, and then you can move people from one place to another.
I love that.
And we'll have to, talk more about it
we will.
another time.
Let me hit one last thing with you, Shalev, see what you think. So Tony talks about the 6 human needs. Yeah. He says these people will break their beliefs, their values to meet their needs. Mm-hmm. And there's 4 core needs, and then there's 2 extra needs that are like to get you to like the next level of fulfillment, having a thriving life. But it's number 1 is certainty, uncertainty, significance, loving connection, growth, and contribution. Mm-hmm. And in some way or form, everyone's trying to meet one of those 6 needs. And a lot of the times they have no freaking clue. And this is why people do stupid things. It's why they get into addictions. It's why they make irrational decisions, right? Yeah. And so understanding the beliefs and systems, but understanding those 6, and we don't have time to dive into it right now, but you'll understand what is moving people to take action, and you can help guide them and help them break through. Like one quick example, my need for significance. You talked about like doing things for external validation, like the net worth, having to flex that. That used to be me. And if significance is your number 1, you'll hit your targets a lot slower if you can, rather than finding it from within. And it takes a lot of inner work, like going through child work and trauma and healing. But when you can do that, when you shoot for targets and you're already in an abundant state, you're grateful for what you have. Tony says you'll hit your targets 100 times faster. And doing it for a greater cause in yourself, love, connection, growth, contribution. Those people have much more influence than people who are doing it out of scarcity mindset. Like I have to pay bills. Like I've got to do this, right? I have to. There's a different frequency that you vibrate at and that you attract, and energy is everything. And selling and recruiting and building. And so you can put yourself in that state by just shifting the perspective. So
I couldn't agree more. And I wish we had more time to talk about it.
I know it's
even just hearing the model operator you just mentioned. People that speak like, I have to do this, I need to do that. The model operator coming of necessity of like things that the image that they have is something scary or bad, and they're trying to move away from it. So it's a necessity of moving away. So people that speak in terms of I want to, I can, are speaking in possibilities, in things that they want towards. So you either move towards something you want or away from something you don't want. Understanding the model operator, understanding what the motivation is. Are they moving for something away from something, or are they moving towards something? Helps you understand the person better.
Love that.
But yeah, I know.
Dude, so good.
I know we got to go.
Man, if we had an audience, we'd be having a round of applause. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Shalev, thank you for being here.
Hey, it was great, man.
We'll call it a wrap, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks, you brother. Appreciate it.
We'll see you.
Good stuff, man. Sorry, I got my partners are calling me because I'm the host of the Zoom.